Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. We are once again not in studio because we are down here in Anaheim at FAST OC. That's Firearms and Safety Training. The reason why we are down here is to talk to Lance Boland. Now, if you haven't heard the full name Lance Boland, you've probably heard the last name Boland in our lawsuit against the Unsafe Handgun Act, Boland v. Bonta. So with us today is Lance. Lance, how are you today?
Good. Thank you for coming down and visiting our place and getting this interview going.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for being here. We're going to be talking about the lawsuit today, but before we do, I just wanted to make sure you guys, it is helping with the algorithm. So if you want to hit a like, share, or subscribe button on this video, it really helps get the message out there. We're trying to bring litigation, legislation, and cultural updates and education through these videos, so we want it to get to as many people as possible, and that really helps. So Lance, I guess we can start at the beginning, right? So
Okay.
why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you kind of fit into the firearms community in general?
Awesome. Well, this all started as far as firearms go when I was about 6 years old through my dad. My dad, a Marine veteran, he was a firearms instructor as well, NRA certified, and starting off in Idaho, we a lot of territory to go shooting. It's encouraged. There's the culture out there, the gun culture, that even at 6 years old I wasn't fully aware of, but participated in. As we grew, started participating in hunting and outdoor activities like that, firearms use, and eventually Southern Illinois, where the game kind of changed, from duck and elk to deer and geese and stuff like that. So always grew up pretty much long gun culture is really where it was at. And then finally moving into an area a little closer to Chicago where while there's some gun culture that exists up there, not necessarily the one that we endorse, but it kind of limited in the opportunities and things we did, and trap and skeet and the more sporting aspects of firearms started to take over. And in 1994, joined the Marine Corps and started getting a different types of firearms training, something less sporting, more I guess they refer to as tactical or offensive, and went through all of the common weapons within the Marine Corps. And when I got out is really where kind of things started to change. Friends and families started to lean on me for instruction, like, hey, can you show us? Or, hey, I'd like to buy a gun. Can you help? And at that point, coming out of the military is you're not necessarily a weapons expert, is just a regular infantry or grunt. So with people relying on you, it's time to educate yourself. And that's kind of the path that I started to take, is not necessarily education for self-purpose, which I did get, but more of an education to help others. And as that grew, it eventually got recommended by a couple friends of like, well, you should get certified. And kind of looking back, and I was like, yeah, my dad was certified. And, I guess that's a path I could take. And started to pursue that. And starting about 2013, tracked down TJ Johnston, who is I referred to as a mentor, awesome patriot, awesome American, huge Second Amendment advocate. So that started to spark that aspect of what we have and what we need to keep, and eventually led to the creation of Fast OC as a hobby that eventually grew into kind of what it is today. And kind of put me in the position of having the credentials, having the background, the knowledge to approach this as a knowledgeable plaintiff with solid standing.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me a little bit about how that bleeds in? So, I mean, first of all, that's kind of interesting to me. I try and ask as many people as I can, how do you get into this community? I personally wouldn't consider myself necessarily a legacy portion of this community. I don't have a history in my family back of like Second Amendment advocates, as I try to be today. But it seems like you have an aspect of that legacy along with an aspect of self-creation with and service to the community in trying to help others around you become educated. So, I mean, sitting where you are here now in California, with the laws that have come down, I mean, even with all the attempts that have already been made to undo this Unsafe Handgun Act, how is it, or what is it in your life that kind of puts you in that position to be a good plaintiff for this case, and hopefully it be a successful one?
Well, it's the standing. It's multifaceted. It's not that I'm a member of the public that just wanted to, purchase a particular type of handgun, which is absolutely the concern and what were the rights that we're trying to vindicate here. But going into a lawsuit, a multifaceted standing is really what you need. So just as a concerned citizen, as a concerned citizen who uses a firearm, a handgun, to protect myself and my family is another aspect of it. As a competitive shooter, I shoot IDPA, USPSA, I-Corps, Steel Challenge, whatever there's something to shoot out, they'll put out in front of us, we'll do it. In fact, to the point we run our own competition now here at Evans Gun World. And being able to get the equipment that makes us competitive on the California stage, not only taking that, but going to an area nationals or a larger tier 4 or tier 5 match in IDPA, is we do not have access to that equipment. Beyond that is my status as an instructor in the community. So the students that we bring in are diverse. We have right-handed, left-handed, ambidextrous, people with disabilities, people who have limited dexterity, and we cannot get access to the equipment that we need with firearms, with handguns, to properly train our students. So the state has made the argument about these features, the loaded chamber indicator and the magazine disconnects being for safety, yet we can't get the equipment to train somebody safely.
Right, and how is it that you can't get the equipment? It's not necessarily that these firearms aren't being made. They're specifically kind of not being manufactured with the chamber load indicator or the magazine disconnect by the manufacturer, so they can't get imported. We can't use them. I'm really curious from your perspective as a trainer. There are exemptions within the Unsafe Handgun Act that have been around, and it really carries beyond the Unsafe Handgun Act. A lot of legislation that we see ends up having exemptions. Something that I wanted to kind of demystify here, it seems like there's this concerted effort to express that the firearms community isn't trained. I know that there is a certain population out there that goes out and purchases firearms, and they put them in their nightstand because they at least want that feeling of, I have the capability of using that. I guess the discussion for whether or not to include them or exclude them in the firearms and advocating community, but coming as an instructor, somebody who runs a business specifically to instruct, can you speak on that a little bit? What do you mean when you say diverse group of people coming in here, and what is the level of training that you end up seeing from these individuals?
That's not to use a pun, but that's a loaded question.
Sure.
We see them everywhere. It's not only in stature, ability, mental faculties. We get people across the board, people with misconceptions about firearms, people with absolute fears, people that have experienced trauma in their past and they're trying to overcome. I would say for the most part, the people coming in here have a concern. They have a concern about their safety. They're seeing what's going on in society. The media hypes it up. We see it right now with smash and grabs and people being victims of violence, follow home robberies, home invasions, and they want to protect themselves. To take the next step in your training, besides familiarization or orientation to a firearm, it's a lifestyle change, especially if you're going to make the jump to defensive shooting. It's a lifetime of avoidance, deterrence, detection, and ultimately training yourself to use that as a tool in your own protection, your own to save yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. It's already been adjudicated. Law enforcement has no duty to protect you. And as this starts to come to light, and as we start to see the end results of the politics in this state, we're seeing that it is really up to us. And people from, I would say, day one when I started this 10 years ago versus today, people take it a lot more seriously. They understand what it is they need to do. They just don't understand the path to get there. And that's our job. That's our job to show them the path and to encourage them. One, you got to be safe. You got to know how this thing works. You got to be able to hit what you're aiming at, and start with that rough foundation and build on it. And it's ultimately up to them to continue their training. And some we see progress, and some we see that it's a financial burden, it's a time burden, and I've got the gun and I'm okay with it. And those are the ones we try to influence.
Well, yeah, and then we continue to see other pieces of legislation like I think it's AB 28 that looks to impose an 11% tax on firearms parts, and ammunition. That makes it even more burdensome for people to continue. But I guess the one constant that I was trying to, kind of make apparent is that people do want training for their firearms, and they want continued training. This isn't a situation where the entire population is out here who have gone and purchased a firearm and just toss it in the safe or the nightstand and don't continue that education and training. The firearms community is kind of revolving around the safety aspect of understanding and being educated on firearms, and they want to continue their progression in how to use that, right?
Absolutely. And it's something that we've efforted with our pricing structures here is, Fast OC was an endeavor never to make money. And so far we've been doing great. There's I kind of joke around. I said it's a nonprofit, but it wasn't intended to be that way. But looking for that and making it affordable to everybody. If we quadrupled our prices or however many folds you want to put on it, would we still get business? Absolutely, we would. But what about the people that, as you mentioned, with 11% tax, who is that really going to affect? It's going to affect the people that don't have the disposable income to go out there and get something to protect themselves. Orange County is a wealthy county. An 11% tax, while aggravating, would be, I don't think it would impact sales that much. But you get into some of the more disadvantaged areas of people who absolutely need a firearm to protect themselves, and that 11% tax on a $500, $600, $700 handgun is significant for them. Right. So you're going after a part of the population that is the most susceptible to forms of violence we're concerned about as well. So, and
it's funny how legislation kind of works like that sometimes. Yep. But so I guess let's bring it back to the lawsuit here. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are. Everybody goes into something with a certain set of expectations. I can tell you that we certainly receive a lot of comments just in general, not even necessarily with this lawsuit, although I got to say, comparatively, this lawsuit seems to be moving pretty quick. But we do get comments of frustration, not with CRPA, but with the process in general. Why the heck does this take so long? Where exactly are we at? You've got a proposed injunction here. You've got the lawsuit here. I'm curious, what were your expectations coming into this lawsuit, and have they been met?
They've been exceeded. Just to answer the last part of the question. But going into it, I believe I was probably a bit jaded more than any of the other plaintiffs I've seen. Going into this, having a familiarization with the legal system just through my personal attorney. I'm also a student of law currently, going through law school. So having a little bit of insight onto process was one. It takes a while. Looking back historically on some of the litigation all the way back through Peruta, looking at the Virginia Duncan and Patrick Levitt's lawsuit, and just kind of the slow roll. Sure, as a gun owner, it's frustrating. I want my magazines. I want to be able to buy ammunition. I want to buy the guns I want. And in the age of instant satisfaction, I think we've lost sight of the idea that the law and the legal system and the justice system is deliberate. It's thoughtful, and yes, it does take time. The end result of that is not a hasty decision that would be easily overturned. We need our Second Amendment rights to endure. And if we rush to decision, if something gets rushed through court, something gets missed, we open the door for appeal, we open the door for the state to attack them, and we end up losing our rights. But, we got what we wanted right now, but we lose it. And this is something that we need to go through. Look, it's, federal rules of civil procedure and everything else included. It takes time, and there's a reason for that. And I know it's frustrating, but it's something that needs to be done.
Well, and the arguments, that we've seen attempts to overturn the Unsafe Handgun Act. We've seen several. I think in recent history, there's been 4 notable lawsuits that really aim to strike this thing down. Is it the arguments that we got now? Is it the situation that we're in, having Bruin kind of be the scope, or both? What's your take on the opportunity for success with this lawsuit?
Well, we're post Bruin. We're in a really solid position. And as CRPA's even put out on social media, Bruin is definitely Thor's hammer, and it's the hammer that we're gonna take to the state. Looking previous to Bruin, it's in my opinion that a lot of these lawsuits that were filed, I don't believe were necessarily to vindicate the rights of the public of California. It honestly, the way that they were composed, the arguments that were made, they were fundraising lawsuits. And again, that's solely my opinion. Do others share it? Absolutely. You see it out there. And when we see the quality of argument being made, I think that's really where it comes to light. You take the last hearing that we had here at the Ninth Circuit, just a week or so ago, and you notice that the strength of our argument was even referred to by the justices. They're like, well, we'll get to that in the Boland case, or we'll address that in the Boland case. If the argument was so well crafted and so strong, why didn't it get argued on its own merits? And that's where the legal team that we have with Michelle and Associates, the support from CRPA, the depth of knowledge that's really going into this show that this is a Second Amendment advocacy lawsuit. This isn't for notoriety. This isn't so I can make a social media post or that I get to do fundraising that ultimately really only the few benefit from. This is something that we're going to take the state to task over.
Well, and that essentially is what you two are doing, right? You are advocating. So I guess from your position, I would ask finally, do you have a message for everybody else out there? You certainly have a whole lot of support, you, the other plaintiffs, CRPA, for this lawsuit in general. What is your message to everybody out there as somebody who is advocating as a plaintiff on this case?
It's not just us. It's not just California. If you look historically and what's going on, especially in the last election cycle, we're seeing more red counties, red states turn purple or blue. If we can't beat this here in California, it's coming to your doorstep. And that's been proven time and time again. As soon as the anti-gun left gets into office, one of the first things they start passing is they start disarming the populace. And with the viewers of CRPA and the CRPA channel and supporters, we're gun owners. I understand not everybody's an advocate, but not everybody needs to be an advocate, but you do need to be informed. You need to understand process. You need to understand what some of this terminology is, and CRPA has been great at educating the public. And going out there, and something that I preach as a chapter chairman and even in my classes is, everybody in here, we all sleep with a gun, but when are you going to wake up and fight? And that's really what I would pose to everybody.
Well, hey, I really appreciate the message. I appreciate you taking the time to do this video with us. So thanks again for being with us.
No problem.
Today.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And if you like this content and more like it, please, again, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. All of that goes towards the algorithms to grow the channel and get more eyes on this message and education. So please, one more time, go ahead, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.